Troubleshooting, single CAC. Let's review the single CAC installation process and check each point by phase. In the installation preparation phase, first select an indoor or outdoor unit and its installation location. Install the indoor unit at a well-drained place where it can be easily connected to the pipe, where no obstacle disturbs indoor air suction near the suction nozzle, and where there's enough space for maintenance. Choose a place away from the kitchen and ventilation fan, or near the access door, and keep it out of exposure to sunlight. Keep a distance of at least 300 millimeters between the air suction nozzle of the outdoor unit and wall, and 700 millimeters between the air outlet and obstacle. Make sure to cut the pipe in a straight line. Remove the burr of the cutting part with the limer, as it can cause refrigerant leaks and malfunctions. Because the flare processing part interlocks with the connection unit, accurately check the state of the expansion pipe. Conduct flare work and use the torque wrench based on the standard when connecting the pipes of the indoor and outdoor units. Replace air inside the pipe with nitrogen before brazing. Nitrogen pressure of below 0.02 MPa, nitrogen pressure of below 0.02 megapascal, 0.2 kgf per square centimeter should be used. Push and fit the drainage hose into the drainage pipe of the indoor unit and connect and apply bond to the clamp so that no water leak occurs at the connection part. Install the hose in a downward slope and make sure to install the air vent. When using a refrigerant piping insulator, apply at least 9 mm of EPDM insulator to the liquid line and 13 mm to the gas line by referring to the standard thickness table. Make sure to use dedicated bond and tape for the insulator joint. Be sure to use a vacuum pump and nitrogen gas when checking for leaks and purging air. Pressurize nitrogen gas up to 3.8 megapascal using an R410A dedicated manifold gauge, and check if pressure is maintained for 24 hours. Perform a leak inspection by running a soapy water test at the same time. Trial operation will start if the set button is pressed after pressing the function setting button on the wired remote control for more than 3 seconds. Channel 5 and 53 refer to communication errors between the indoor and outdoor units. Channel 5 occurs if the indoor unit cannot receive a signal from the outdoor unit, whereas Channel 53 occurs if the outdoor unit cannot receive a signal from the indoor unit. Channel 5 can be checked in the indoor and outdoor units and the wired remote control. The remote control will display CH and 05 alternately. The red LED flashes for 5 seconds on the indoor unit's display window. The red and green LED lights of the outdoor unit's main PCB flash 5 and 3 times respectively. Make sure to inspect the circuit breaker, power line, and power supply as basic items for service checks. The single-phase product should have a 220 volt plus minus 10% when the LN phase is measured. The three-phase product should have a 380 volt plus minus 10% when 2 phases are measured, excluding the N phase from the RSTN phases, or a 220 volt plus minus 10% voltage when an RST phase is measured with the N phase. The communication line between the indoor and outdoor units can be checked the following way. First, separate the indoor unit side panel, and then remove the control box cover. Measure N and C on the communication terminal block and check if the value is 0 to 35 volts. If the value is abnormal, check the main PCB and communication line between the indoor and outdoor units. Separate the main PCB of the control box between the indoor and outdoor units, and check for any abnormality such as carbonization and disconnected fuse. Channel 5 and Channel 53 refer to errors that can occur intermittently depending on the situation. In this case, the error might stem from a surrounding load. Check if the error was caused by interference from other electrical installations. Also see if the same communication error ensues when only the product is operated after turning off other electrical, communication, and security devices and lighting. If the same error code appears, turn on the other electrical and communication devices one by one to identify which device causes noise and take action. If the error persists even after checking, improper installation is the likely cause. In this case, check if the communication line's sheath is peeled off, disconnected, or has short-circuited, and replace the line if an error is found. Channel 23 refers to an error occurring when the inverter DC link is not properly charged. Check for low voltage received after installation. Channel 23 can be checked in the indoor and outdoor units and the wired remote control. The remote control displays CH and 23 alternately, and the red LED flashes twice on the indoor unit's display window. The red and green LED lights of the outdoor unit's main PCB flash twice and 3 times, respectively. Make sure to inspect the circuit breaker, power line, and power supply as basic items for service checks. The single-phase product should have 220 volt plus minus 10% when the LN phase is measured. The three-phase product should have a 380 volt plus minus 10% when 2 phases are measured, excluding the N phase from the RSTN phases, or a 220 volt plus minus 10% voltage when an RST phase is measured with the N phase. Check the connection of the harness that supplies the input power to the outdoor unit's main PCB, as well as that of the reactor harness. Then check the connection of the reactor in the inverter PCB unit. Generally, the DC link voltage is normal if it's more than 1.4 times the input voltage. For example, if the input voltage of the single-phase product is 220 volt, a reading of 310 volt is normal. If 250 volt or less is displayed, the input and DC link voltages will decrease, and the compressor can stop while running. This means the power generator capacity should be increased. Check if the input voltage of the LGMV data is more than 1.4 times the DC link's current voltage. Because the error might not be displayed on the indoor unit or remote control, the optimal way to check for errors is the outdoor unit's LED. Make sure to inspect the circuit breaker, power line, and power supply as basic items for service checks. The single-phase product should have a 220 volt plus minus 10% when the LN phase is measured. The three-phase product should have a 380 volt plus minus 10% when two phases are measured, excluding the N phase from the RSTN phases, or a 220 volt plus minus 10% voltage when an RST phase is measured with the N phase. If no error is detected in the voltage, check if the outdoor unit's installation space fits the standard condition. If the unit's air current doesn't circulate properly, the unit cannot run normally due to increased load near itself. Check if the high-low pressure service valve of the outdoor unit opens normally. Check if the EEV harness terminal is properly connected to the outdoor unit's main PCB. Reset the unit's main power. Close the low-pressure service valve and separate the EEV coil by turning it to the left side while the EEV is fully opened. Then operate the product. Check the connection and for carbonization in the compressor connection harness. To measure phase-to-phase resistance, open the compressor terminal's cover and measure the resistance of terminals. When two of terminal block UVW's phases are measured, a normal reading is if the same resistance value is obtained for phase-to-phase resistance measurement, but the compressor is defective if the values differ. Measure resistance between a UVW phase and the outdoor unit cycle piping to measure insulation resistance. The normal scope of the insulation resistance value is above 10 megohm, as shown in the table. Otherwise, this indicates the potential for compressor defect. The range of the product input current differs by chassis. The table shows the normal range. Check for any carbonization traces in the IPM and the screw and connector joint parts of the inverter PCBA. Measure the voltage terminal and P and N of the inverter PCBA DC link and check if the reading is 310 volt in case of a single phase and 540 volt in case of a three-phase connection. Measure the diode of UVW between the P terminal of the inverter PCB and each phase, and UVW between the N terminal and each phase. Check heatsink using LGMV. Channel 67 refers to an error caused by a malfunction in the outdoor unit's fan. First, turn off the outdoor unit. The unit's installation environment needs checking because of the potential for error in the outdoor unit's fan due to environmental factors such as external shock, blocking by other materials, and strong winds. Check the connection of the fan motor harness. If it's normal, separate the harness and measure the resistance of fan phases. The table below shows normal resistance value. Check the PCB if a normal value is measured. For fan number 1, check for carbonization besides connection between the outdoor unit's fan motor harness and PCB. For fan number 2, if number 1 doesn't work, connect to number 2's fan motor harness and operate the product to see if the fan motor or PCB is malfunctioning. Channel 10 refers to an error caused by a defective fan motor in the indoor unit. First, turn off the outdoor unit. Separate the indoor unit's suction filter and grill, and check if the indoor unit's fan harness is properly connected. Also, inspect the fan's rotational state. First, separate the side panel of the indoor unit, and then remove the control box cover. Then separate the unit's fan harness in the PCB and measure phase-to-phase resistance. The table below shows the phase-to-phase resistance value. First, turn the power on. Measure terminals numbers 1 and 4 in the fan motor harness's terminal block of the indoor unit PCB. A reading of DC 310 volt is normal. When measuring numbers 4 and 5, 15 volt is normal. Afterwards, separate the PCB and check for carbonization on the rear side. Channel 54 refers to an error occurring if the input voltage is improperly connected in a product using three-phase power, or if the power connection sequence is wrong. Channel 54 refers to an error that can be checked in either the indoor or outdoor unit and wired remote control. The remote control displays CH and 54 alternately, and the red LED flashes twice on the indoor unit's display window. The red and green LED lights of the outdoor unit's main PCB flash 5 and 4 times, respectively. Make sure to inspect the circuit breaker, power line, and power supply as basic items for service checks. The single-phase product should have a 220 volt plus/minus 10% when the LN phase is measured. The three-phase product should have a 380 volt plus/minus 10% when two phases are measured, excluding the N phase from the RSTN phases, or a 220 volt plus/minus 10% voltage when an RST phase is measured with the N phase. First, turn off the outdoor unit. Check the connection of the main power line connected to the breaker and the unit's power terminal. Reconnect if loose. Separate all harnesses from the outdoor unit's main PCB and noise filter. Then separate the casing of the main and fan PCBs. Check if the fuse is normal, that is, located at the bottom of the noise filter on the rear side. To check if the fuse is normal, separate it and measure its resistance value. A normal reading is 0.1 ohm or less, while an abnormal reading will result in infinity being displayed. Check for errors in the power supply part, such as in the PCB noise filter